All right. Eviction appeals, huh? We're going deep on those today.
Definitely a topic worth exploring.
I mean, it can feel like a real legal jungle out there, especially when you're facing you possibly losing your home.
It is a lot to navigate, for sure.
You've shared some sources with us. Pasted text in terms how to appeal in eviction.txt.
Yeah, those are good starting points.
So let's break it down.
Great, let's do it.
Okay, so that moment you get that eviction notice,
It's never a fun moment.
pasted text really hammers home that you need to really scrutinize that document.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just about knowing why you're being evicted.
Exactly. There's got to be more to it.
Absolutely. That notice, it's like the opening move in a legal chess match.
Oh, interesting.
It sets the stage for the whole appeals process. Outlines the reasons for the eviction, of course, but also, super important, the deadlines for responding.
So those deadlines, they're like make or break.
They can be... Missing a deadline can be a killer for your appeal, even if you have a strong case. Otherwise...
Wow, so you could have a rock-solid defense, but just messing up a date could mean you lose automatically.
Yeah, unfortunately, that happens more often than you'd think.
That's intense. Okay, pasted text also mentions this thing about watching out for clauses that say lease violations are continuing.
Oh, yeah.
What's that all about?
That's a tricky one. Continuing violation means it's something ongoing, like if there are noise complaints or if you have unauthorized pets.
Right.
Landlords, they often use this to kind of stack things against the tenant.
So how does that work?
They'll claim multiple violations over time, even if it's essentially the same issue.
Oh, sneaky.
Right. So let's say you get a noise complaint, then another one a few weeks later.
Even though it's basically the same problem.
Exactly. They'll try to use that as multiple strikes against you.
Okay, so if you see continuing violation on that notice,
Red flag.
you really need to get on top of it fast.
Absolutely. And you'll want to start gathering evidence.
To prove it's not actually ongoing.
Exactly. You'll want to challenge those claims. And it's not always just about emails and text messages either.
Wait, what else can you use as evidence? Besides showing you paid rent on time and stuff?
Well, photos, for one, they can be really powerful.
Interesting. How so?
Let's say you're dealing with an eviction because of alleged property damage.
Okay, yeah.
Photos that show the actual condition of your unit. Those can make or break your case.
I see. So showing that the damage isn't as bad as they claim.
Exactly. Visual evidence is strong.
Okay, what else?
Witness testimonies, another thing people often overlook.
From neighbors and stuff?
Especially neighbors. They can corroborate your story, back up your claims.
So you're building this whole legal puzzle then?
It is kind of like that. You're piecing together different types of evidence to tell your side of the story.
Okay, and then there's the whole deep dive into the lease agreement, right? Pasted text makes it sound like there's some real gold hidden in all that legal jargon.
It's all about finding inconsistencies, or did the landlord make a procedural misstep?
So give me an example.
Did they follow the proba notification procedures outlined in the lease before they filed for eviction? Things like that.
Oh, I see.
Or were there repairs they were obligated to make but didn't?
Yeah.
The lease is like your playbook for holding them accountable.
Okay, so it's like a scavenger hunt through all that legalese.
Kinda. It can feel that way.
Sounds a little daunting. And looking at this list of terms from terms how to appeal in eviction.txt, eviction, landlord, appeal, judgment, all that. I mean, wow.
It can seem overwhelming, for sure.
Starting to get why legal help is probably super crucial.
Yeah, it's more than just understanding the terms. It's about knowing how to use them strategically in your situation.
Right, like what applies in your case.
Exactly. Even if you can't afford a lawyer for the entire process, an initial consultation can be a game changer.
Yeah, just to get some clarity, like which direction to head in.
Exactly, to figure out your options and any potential weaknesses in your case.
Pasted text recommends tenants' rights organizations as a starting point.
Yeah, those are great, especially if you're worried about legal fees.
Okay, cool. Now, one thing I noticed, both of these sources seem to be focused on California.
Yeah, seems that way.
So does that matter for our listeners?
Yeah.
Or are these eviction appeal principles pretty universal?
Well, the fundamentals are pretty similar across the U.S., but each state has its own set of laws and procedures.
Right, makes sense.
And California, for example, tends to have stronger tenant protections than a lot of other states.
Oh, really? So knowing the specifics of California law could actually be a big deal for our listeners.
It could be a game changer.
Okay, so what kind of advantages are we talking about in California?
Well, one key difference is the concept of just cause eviction.
Just cause, okay.
In California, a landlord can't just evict you on a whim. just because they feel like it.
They can't. Interesting.
Nope. They need a legally valid reason, like non-payment of rent, violating the lease agreement, or engaging in illegal activity on the property.
So there has to be a real solid reason, not just like, I don't like you anymore.
Exactly. Just cause is key in California.
Got it. So if our listener is in California, that eviction notice should clearly state one of those just cause reasons.
Absolutely. And if it doesn't, that could be grounds for an appeal right there.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it all comes back to that eviction notice, scrutinizing every detail.
It all starts there. And that lease agreement, too. Don't forget that.
Right. Those documents are like your treasure map to finding potential loopholes or procedural errors.
Exactly. They can be your best friend in this process.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. Now, let's say our listener has done their homework, examined the eviction notice, the lease agreement, gathered their evidence. What's next? This is where the actual appeal process kicks in, right?
That's right. The first step is formally filing that appeal with the court.
Okay, so how do you do that?
It usually involves specific forms, and this is important, sticking to strict deadlines.
Oh, deadlines again.
Terms mentions a 30-day window, which is pretty typical in many places. Missing that deadline can be fatal to your appeal.
Wow, 30 days to get everything in order? That doesn't seem like a lot of time.
It can feel very rushed, especially when you're already stressed about potentially being evicted.
Right, and trying to figure out all this legal stuff.
This is where having some legal guidance, even just for the initial filing stage, can make a world of difference.
Yeah, having someone who knows the ropes.
Exactly. An experienced advocate can make sure the paperwork is correct, filed on time, and presents your case in the strongest possible way.
Like having a seasoned navigator to guide you through all the legal red tape.
Exactly.
Okay, so the appeal is filed correctly and on time. What happens next in this eviction appeal adventure?
Well, next comes preparing for the hearing itself.
Ah, the big showdown.
Pasted text talks about organizing evidence and rehearsing your arguments.
So you have to be ready to present your case.
It's a lot like preparing for a big presentation, but with much higher stakes.
Okay, so it's not just about having the right evidence. You need to present it in a convincing way.
Right. It's got to be clear and persuasive. You want the judge to understand and believe you.
Any tips from your courtroom experience on how to make a strong impression?
Remember, the judge probably hears tons of cases every day. Your goal is to make your case stand out.
Yeah, how do you do that?
Not by getting overly emotional, but by being organized, concise, and respectful.
So like, be professional and stick to the facts.
Exactly. Anticipate the questions the judge might ask and be prepared to explain things clearly.
Even if it's all complicated legal stuff.
Even then, you want to show you understand the issues and can articulate your side of the story.
Got it. Terms mention something called brief law in its outline. What's that all about?
A legal brief is a written document that outlines the arguments and evidence in your case.
So it's like a summary of your whole argument.
It's more detailed than a summary, but yeah, it lays out everything.
Oh, okay. And why is that so important?
It's the judge's first formal introduction to your side of the story. They'll read it before the hearing.
Oh, I see. So it needs to be really well written then.
Yeah. A well-written brief can make a huge difference in how the judge sees your case.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I bet that's where having some legal help would be super valuable.
Absolutely. Crafting a clear, persuasive, and legally sound brief is an art form.
Not something you can just whip up overnight.
It takes experience and expertise.
Okay, so we've got our brief filed, our evidence organized, our arguments all polished. It's showtime. What can our listener expect at the actual hearing?
The big day. It can be nerve-wracking, for sure.
So, any advice on how to handle it?
First things first. Arrive on time and dress appropriately. It shows respect for the court and the seriousness of the situation.
Right, make a good first impression.
Exactly. And when you're presenting your case, speak clearly and confidently. Don't interrupt the judge or the other party.
Okay.
And remember, your goal isn't just to win at all costs. Sometimes a successful outcome means negotiating a settlement or compromise.
Oh, so there might be room for negotiation even at this late stage.
It's possible. It could be a way to reach an agreement that allows you to stay in your home.
That's good to know. I keep thinking about that blog post outline from terms. Specifically the questions like, what happens when a tenant appeals an eviction judgment? And can a tenant appeal an eviction judgment successfully? It makes me wonder, is there a chance this whole thing could drag on even longer? Like, is this just the first step?
You've hit on a crucial point. What we've talked about so far is just the first stage of the appeals process. If the initial ruling doesn't go in your favor, there might be options to appeal to a higher court.
So even if you lose the first round, it might not be the end of the road.
Exactly. It can get more complex, though.
Yeah.
And there's also this thing called a stay of execution.
Stay of execution. That sounds intense, like something out of a movie.
It's not as dramatic as it sounds. In this context, it just means the court is putting a pause on the eviction process.
Oh, okay. So it's not like,
No, nothing like that. It prevents the landlord from forcibly removing you from the property while your appeals are pending.
So it buys you some time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It can be a lifeline for tenants who are fighting for their homes.
But it's not automatic, right?
No, there are specific requirements that need to be met, but it's definitely something to be aware of.
Okay, so it sounds like understanding the entire process, not just the initial hearing, is super important.
Absolutely. And this is where having legal guidance can be so valuable.
Right, someone who can help you navigate all the complexities.
An experienced advocate can help you make informed decisions at each step of the way.
So we've walked through the steps of the appeal process, from filing to the hearing, and even the possibility of further appeals. What are some key takeaways for our listener, especially if they're facing this whole daunting situation right now?
Yeah, I mean, it can feel really overwhelming.
It definitely can. It's a lot to process.
It's okay. Knowledge is power, right? Even if it feels like you're drowning in legal stuff, just understanding the process, your rights.
It's the first step.
It's huge.
And one of the most empowering things you can do is really dig into that eviction notice, like we were saying before.
Yeah, really break it down.
It's not just a piece of paper. It's the basis of the landlord's entire case. Right, it's their argument.
Exactly. And you need to look for anything that seems off.
Like what kind of things?
Inconsistencies, missing information, procedural errors, anything that could help you.
Ah, so you're looking for mistakes they might have made.
Exactly. And don't forget that lease agreement.
Right. Pasted text was big on that too.
It's like your legal Bible in this situation.
Okay, so go back and read the lease carefully.
Definitely pasted text suggested looking for things like, are there required notification periods for repairs? Are there specific clauses about how disputes are handled?
So you're looking for anything that the landlord might not have followed properly.
Exactly. That lease agreement, it's your roadmap. You need to make sure they followed all the rules.
Okay, so we're examining the eviction notice, the lease agreement.
Gathering evidence.
Right, and remember, it's not just emails and rent receipts.
It's anything that supports your story. Photos, videos, witness statements.
Get creative.
Exactly. Think outside the box. Let's say the eviction is for noise complaints. Do you have videos showing how you've soundproofed your apartment? Testimonials from neighbors who haven't been bothered?
Well, that's smart. So it's about painting a bigger picture.
Exact.
Okay, so we've got our evidence. But this legal stuff, it can be complicated.
It can be.
This is probably where getting legal help is crucial, right?
I would definitely recommend it. Even if it's just for an initial consultation, talking to a tenants' rights advocate or an attorney.
Yeah, get some expert advice.
Exactly. They can help you understand your options, figure out what's strong in your case, and what's maybe not so strong.
And help you come up with a game plan.
Exactly.
And if our listeners in California, they might have a bit of an advantage because of those stronger tenant protections we talked about.
Yeah. California's just cause eviction law is a big deal. It means the landlord needs a solid reason to evict you, not just a change of heart.
Right, like we were saying.
It's a powerful tool for tenants.
So understanding those California-specific laws is key.
It all ties back to that eviction notice. Examining it carefully through the lens of those California laws.
Connecting all the dots.
Exactly.
Okay, let's say our listener has done all but filed their appeal. The hearing date is coming up. Any tips from your experience in the courtroom on how to handle that? Like how to make a strong impression, present a good case?
The hearing can be nerve-wracking for sure, but remember, composure and clarity are key.
Okay, stay calm, cool, and collected.
Exactly. The judge is looking for a clear and concise presentation of your case. Stay calm, speak clearly, focus on the facts.
So no getting emotional, no drama.
You want to be seen as credible and reasonable.
Makes sense.
Focus on the evidence, explain your arguments in a way that's easy to understand, and always be respectful to the judge and the other party.
Professionalism is key.
Exactly.
And even if the initial ruling isn't what you were hoping for, there might be other options, right? Like appealing to a higher court or asking for a stay of execution.
Yeah, those are possibilities, but they can be more complicated and you might need more specialized legal help.
All right, it's getting into deeper legal waters.
The legal system, it's a maze.
This has been so helpful, really insightful. It's clear that appealing an eviction, it's not simple. There are a lot of moving parts.
It's a process for sure.
And having the right knowledge and support, That can make all the difference.
Absolutely. It can empower you to stand up for your rights.
And one final thought for our listener, especially if they're dealing with this right now.
Eviction isn't just a legal matter, it's a human story.
That's a really good point.
Behind all the legal terms and procedures, there are real people facing the possibility of losing their homes.
It's easy to forget that sometimes when you're caught up in the legal battle.
So as you go through this process, remember to advocate for yourself with knowledge, but also with compassion for yourself and for others in the same situation.
That's such a powerful reminder. And to our listener who's going through this, we're sending you good vibes. We're rooting for you.
Hang in there.
Remember, information is power, and you've already taken a big step by learning more about this with us today. So wrapping it all up, what are the big takeaways here? What do people really need to remember?
The biggest thing is knowing your rights, understanding the process.
Right. Don't just panic.
Exactly. Arm yourself with information.
Knowledge is power and all that.
It really is in this situation,
Right.
especially when it comes to something as important as your home.
Okay, so concrete steps. What should our listener do if they're facing eviction right now?
First, that eviction notice. Take it apart piece by piece. Don't just glance at it.
Really scrutinize it.
Every detail matters. Look for any inconsistencies, missing info, procedural errors, anything that could help you.
Like we talked about.
And while you're at it, grab that lease agreement.
Oh yeah, that too.
Give it a thorough read. Make sure the landlord is playing by the rules outlined in the lease.
So it's like a checklist.
Kind of. Make sure they checked all the boxes.
Okay, then gather your evidence.
Yeah.
And remember, it's not just paperwork.
Photos, videos, witness statements, anything that supports your story.
Get creative.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our evidence. We've scrutinized the documents. Now what?
Honestly, at this point, talking to a tenants' rights advocate or an attorney is a smart move.
Even if it's just for a quick chat.
Even then, they can help you make sense of everything. See if your case is strong.
And what your options are.
Exactly.
And for our listeners in California, don't forget about those special tenant protections.
Yeah, California has some good laws in place to protect tenants.
Like that just cause eviction rule?
It's a big one.
Okay, so if things go to a hearing, any last-minute tips?
Stay calm, be prepared, present your case clearly and respectfully.
No theatrics necessary.
The judge wants facts, not a show.
Right.
And even if the initial ruling isn't in your favor, remember, it might not be the end of the story. There are other options.
Further appeals, maybe even a stay of execution.
It can get complicated, but it's worth knowing about.
So much good information in this deep dive. I feel like we've only scratched the surface, though.
It's a complex topic, for sure.
But hopefully it's given our listeners a starting point.
A foundation.
Exactly. To all our listeners out there facing eviction, we're sending you strength.
You got this.
Remember, information is power, and you've taken a big step by joining us today.
Stay informed. Stay empowered.
And that's a wrap for our deep dive on eviction appeals. Thanks for listening.
Call now 714-442-9741. Thank you.